As an IP and complex commercial litigation attorney at Gilbride, Tusa, Last and Spillane, you represent domestic, foreign, and multinational entities. Do you see the current situation having a financial impact on IP stakeholders operating in the United States? And if so, would you say it is more noticeable in some jurisdictions rather than others?
Those are all very good questions. The answer remains to be seen with regard to the long-term effects. Obviously, nobody is unaffected on one level or another by COVID. This is broken all borders. It has exceeded all barriers. It is not. There isn't a segment of the population anywhere in the world, I think, that's not affected on some level. On short term, companies have generally attempted to impart as much normalcy in their day-to-day dealings while using this time to better secure their interests and rights, which I think is a wise move. Unfortunately, most of the world has been put, at least in some part, on pause. As for supply and distribution, that's a difficult question since it would depend upon the types of underlying IP involved and the relationship between the parties. IP stakeholders are at the forefront since manufacturing is, in some cases, halted. Money is tighter than ever and people are on edge. So, this is one of those moments where you try to comfort and continue to nurture your client to weather the storm.
As a former professional hockey player, you're used to getting, checked on the boards and coaching many professionals. And as well, you have many years experience in IP in the United States. How is the current COVID-19 situation affecting the legal sector in general? And which are the major changes you've seen in the last few months?
Well, I think COVID has hit the legal sector harder than I ever got hit while I was playing. And, the coaching has actually come in pretty useful during this period of time, although through my entire career, because it allowed me to develop a skill set that, with working with people and trying to foster their confidence and comfort to achieving a goal that they'd like to achieve. In my legal work, it's been in securing IP and in enforcing it, and then hopefully developing any value that might be instilled within it.
Dealing with young professional hockey players, coaching them through resiliency, you're now bringing that over into the legal specter, taking your team, your clients, and dealing with IP and complex commercial litigation with Gilbride, Tusa, Last, and Spillane. You represent both domestic, foreign, and multinational entities. Do you see the current situation having a financial impact on IP stakeholders operating in the United States? And if so, would you say it's more noticeable in some technologies rather than others?
With regards to IP stakeholders, just generally speaking, they are as if not more vulnerable than most other business owners out there. Technology and brand driven companies have no choice but to figure out ways to continue to function and to survive in a very, very difficult environment. Generally speaking, if it's a brand driven, it's still usually, if it's consumer goods or anything else, people are very focused on specific things, and in order to supply those goods, you need to be able to manufacture them. COVID has definitely put its challenges on IP. I wouldn't say that it's IP alone, though. I think it's clear to say that every sector has been hit. But when you talk about patent holders or trademark holders, even copyright owners, you're looking at how is business being done, and in particular, how does it have to be done in order to be able to get around the challenges that have been placed by COVID in their paths. For instance, supply and distribution, that's a difficult question, and it would depend upon the type of underlying intellectual property that is at stake there. For instance, if the IP is deliverable over the internet, theoretically, it shouldn't have any problem. On the other hand, if these are widgets of some sort, hard products, manufacture, as we mentioned before, is going to be difficult, and then distribution has become extraordinarily difficult. But you can't even distribute or supply if you're not getting supplies that you need to manufacture in the first instance, and you don't have people to work for you to make what you're ultimately looking to sell. So it does place several layers of difficulty that didn't normally exist. As for the United States, I think the US is probably getting hit among all first world countries the hardest, predominantly because the United States is, even though we joke a lot here that everything is made abroad, it's not. And we're also big IP holders. I think China and the United States are neck and neck for who owns the most patents in the world. Clearly, the United States and the European Union and the United Kingdom collectively would own, it'd be hard to say who, but it would be our big brand holders. And probably, I would guess, the United States dwarfs the other two. So when the economy is sluggish or slowed down, this is, it makes it very difficult to be able to exploit the spoils of your IP.
So Todd, you devoted your career to thwarting illicit trade, including the manufacture and sale of counterfeit goods. We had spoken to someone in Canada, and they mentioned that the importance of small businesses to keep maintaining their IP due to the fact that there is a lot of counterfeiting at this point. Would you say the same is true for small businesses in the United States as well?
I think the same is true worldwide. What's happened here is that while sales might be down momentarily, you're looking at abandoning IP as your alternative, which is rarely a good idea unless it really has no intrinsic value, at which point, why would you have wasted your time securing it in the first place? Particularly in view of the time and effort and expense associated with its development to begin with. Unfortunately, counterfeiting is a constant. It survives all downturns, and it actually thrives in tough economies because people can't afford the goods they want. So they look for bargains, for less expensive alternatives. As a result, the level of people who have the ability to forbear from doing what they already know is not a good idea otherwise, they want to kind of please themselves. They want to get somewhere. They want to be able to have an opportunity to enjoy, for lack of any better term, the sweetness of life.
Have you seen any specific cases of patent holders that were, because of the economy, they weren't able to protect their patents, so they wouldn't go to court for them?
The biggest problem right now is a lot of these cases, you start with an ex parte application before you actually notify the defendants. So because courts are closed to the outside, the process for achieving that is diminished and more difficult. And then even if you get it, you can't conduct a raid or shut businesses down, pending further trial, because you have to do social distancing. So in that regard, it's very frustrating. And a lot of companies are right now kind of biting their lip and grinning and bearing and waiting for when they can actually start to use legal remedies more effectively. On the other hand, the fact that people are at home and bored means they're on the internet more. When you're on the internet more, it's very easy to stumble into counterfeit goods, and most terrorist cells and criminal organizations count on that you're going to stumble on them and either be confused or think it's a replica, or you're just not going to care because it's less expensive, as we mentioned before. So I think the uptick is there, and you had asked about small businesses. That's the backbone of the world. It's the backbone of this country, certainly. I think that would be true for the Canadian economy, what I know of it. I can't imagine Europe, England. I can't see anywhere where small businesses are not the backbone. The major corporations are great, but they're not what pays most people's mortgages and provides people with, sufficient funds to be able to go out and support big or small businesses by acquiring goods and services.
Have you seen some of the patent holders losing money because of this situation?
It's interesting. I have some clients that are clearly suffering. I have other clients who are thriving because it turns out some of the patents they hold are really geared towards fighting COVID. So for those people, it's great. They have to worry, obviously, about counterfeiters, but COVID is relatively new, and so those products upsurge from good products, from maintenance products, have now become essential products. The counterfeiters, we probably haven't caught up with them as of yet.
So you also work as an adjunct professor at the James E. Beasley School of Law at Temple University. As a seasoned IP expert working closely with the experts of the near future, do you see COVID-19 leading young professionals in the field to develop or specialize in a particular set of skills?
Well, for starters, I'd be remiss if I didn't say for my students, go Owls. Because they're very big on their athletics there. Law, like any other business, requires procedures to be dynamic. There is, if you're rigid in law, unless you have lots of big institutional clients, you're out of business pretty quickly. You have to come up with better mousetraps, better ways to solve problems, new ways to solve problems. Law students are younger, they tend to be more creative. I think what the COVID has done more than anything else, and what I've witnessed in class from discussions, is it has forced the students, much like the rest of us, to reflect on how we are solving these problems, and under these circumstances, if there's better ways to doing it. As for a particular skill set, I don't think most of them at this point are involved enough that they would be looking to expand their toolbox in this specific regard. They might be thinking more in terms of just general litigation strategies and how they might be able to get around the challenges that have been put in place.
Anything else you would like to add that reflects how the industry has been impacted by the global reality that we're currently living in?
I hate to be a doomsayer. I think that COVID is actually resulted in some good. This is not a single-edged sword. This is double-edged. There's no doubt about it. People are learning how to work remotely. Companies are growing more trust in that notion that people can actually have the discipline to put their hours in, do their work. I would be shocked that within 18 months from perhaps the second month of the shutdown from COVID, if we don't see an uptick in patents, because people now have a little more time on their hands to think problems through, and they tend to be more creative. I also think we're going to see an uptick on brands. I think people are right now learning to reposition themselves with existing products and services, but are going to come out of this with still a larger repertoire.
Todd, there are foreign associates that rely on the innovation of the United States. If you had 30 seconds or less, what would you tell those foreign associates, and what would you expect moving forward?
Well, if I could impart anything to my foreign associates beyond what I've already have said to them, which is just be patient. This is a waiting game, and it's unfortunate. You're right. They wait. The foreign associates are quite heavily invested in U.S. inventions and brands to support their ability to survive. Right now, as things are slowing down, clearly that trickles down and it affects them directly. But I do believe, as I said a moment ago, we're going to see an uptick in brand development, and we're going to see an uptick in new technology because of this. And so, it's cyclical. Just give it some time. Don't be rash. I wouldn't close their business just yet.